This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Good morning, I'm Justin Warmoth. After serving 3 terms in the Florida House, Guillermo Smith was defeated in last year's midterm election. The Democrat lost his bid for re-election, partly due to the governor's redistricting map shifting his former district to include parts of eastern Seminole County, which leans Republican. But Smith is hoping his time away from Tallahassee is brief. He's here this morning to talk about his 2024 run for state senate. You are back campaigning for 2024. Tell me why you landed on State Senate District 17 and your platform.
Well, the legislature has taken our state in a dangerous direction. We know that families are being gouged out of affordable housing and they're being rent gouged. We have millions of Floridians who are being pushed off of healthcare through Medicaid. And we have a massive public school teacher shortage that has been made worse by a legislature that has turned our classrooms into political battlefields. We deserve to have champions in Tallahassee who care about people, but also who care about solving real issues, Justin, and that's not what we have now. We need a new legislature, not one that is obsessed with culture wars and with solving problems that do not exist. That's why I'm running. I was born and raised in Florida. I love my community. I love this state. And I'm not willing to give up on it. That's why I'm throwing my hat back into the ring to be the next senator from Central Florida for District 17. And I'm someone who a lot of folks know and trust. I have served in Tallahassee in the State House for 6 years. We have fought for the issues that mattered to address real crises that are happening in the state of Florida. But I'm also running to give people hope, to give them hope that they can still elect leaders in Florida who care about the issues and who are driven by unifying principles like equality, like freedom, like dignity and respect for every person, regardless of their income, their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, or their gender identity. That's the more inclusive Florida that we are fighting for, and that's why I'm running for state senate.
In 2022, in the midterms, you were a victim of redistricting. And you were defeated by Susan Placencia, 52-48. I don't want to harp too much about this, but I do want to get your reaction to how that felt, and really how it felt sitting out this past legislative session where so many bills that went in the GOP's favor were passed.
Well, it was very frustrating because what I watched from afar was that the supermajority Republicans in the state House and in the state Senate, led by Ron DeSantis, used their supermajority to fight culture wars and to make us less safe. And that included passing laws like permitless carry in the state of Florida, which allows for any person to be able to carry a firearm secretly in public without a criminal background check or without any sort of training. We know that these types of extreme policies will make our state less safe. And we have to ask ourselves, what has the supermajority in Tallahassee done with this unprecedented power? Have they used it to actually make people's lives better, to solve real problems like the property insurance crisis that Floridians are facing right now? Have they done it to help protect our environment or solve real issues? They haven't. They have used it to prop up Governor Ron DeSantis and his presidential ambitions and to solve problems that don't exist.
The governor likes to say Florida's where woke goes to die. Depends on who you ask what woke means. How do you define woke?
Well, apparently the governor's own attorneys have struggled to define what woke means when they've been in court defending so many of their unconstitutional policies. The reality is that his war on woke has translated into censorship, academic censorship, not only in our K-12 public schools, but also in higher education, in our state colleges and universities. New laws that not only restrict the types of academic freedoms that have made our state university system strong, but actually censor the types of topics that grown adults in universities and in state colleges can learn about. And that is not something that is good for our state. It has meant that we have seen less academics who are willing to apply for these positions in higher education in the state of Florida that really help grow our economy, grow a talented and educated workforce. we're going to see a lot of negative consequences in the long run as a result of this so-called war on woke, which, by the way, is a war that Governor Ron DeSantis is losing. We keep seeing over and over again, more and more courts have struck down so many of these unconstitutional laws. We see that Disney is winning. We see that drag queens are winning, that trans people are winning in court. And this is all Ron DeSantis becoming a loser on these culture wars that he's actually using to get people to support him in his run for president.
Do you feel Florida is still a safe state to live in for members of the LGBTQ community, specifically trans folks?
Well, you know, the reality is that in Orlando, we do kind of live in a bubble. We live in a bubble where we have strong mayors and strong leaders like Buddy Dyer, the mayor of Orlando, and other elected leaders who have made inclusion and safety for LGBTQ people a priority for them. But we have so many state laws that obviously don't exempt Central Florida or don't exempt Orange County. You know, for example, we have laws that make it a crime for a trans person to use a restroom in a government building. We have new laws that take away the ability of trans people to be able to access generally accepted and widely accepted healthcare that is life-saving. And so what we're seeing is some conventions, some businesses, they are pulling out of the state of Florida because they don't believe that their participants want to be in a state that is so hateful and that is promoting homophobia and transphobia so loudly. But it's not even just the conventions, Justin. These culture wars that Governor Ron DeSantis is running on have not only ruined people's lives, made them more vulnerable to discrimination, it's also costing us jobs. Disney just pulled the plug on a $1 billion economic development deal in Lake Nona that is in Senate District 17, the district that I'm running in. So he's not only ruining lives with this, he's tanking our economy, and we need real leaders in Tallahassee who are going to be serious about solving problems.
It seems like Florida, though, is on board with this action, or from the statistics point of view of it. If you look back at the 2022 midterms, a historic landslide victory for the governor, 20-point victory over Charlie Crist. And is that reflective, in your opinion, of the electorate and where they stand today on these issues?
I don't think it's reflective of where they stand today. What we saw in 2022 was Democrats stayed home. They did not turn out at the rate that Republican voters in Florida did, and we saw unfortunately, what the consequences were for that. What we have seen since the 2022 November elections is we saw city and county elections in Jacksonville and Duval County, where Democrats won in landslides, not only for mayor of Jacksonville, but also for a lot of the city races and the county races. It was practically a sweep for Democrats. What does that say about our prospects and our chances? I think it says that there is hope that Florida Democrats will be able to be competitive in a lot of different places in the state, including in places that are traditionally red, like Duval County, but also that Governor Ron DeSantis and the supermajority in the legislature, the Republicans, their extreme policies have really turned voters off in a way that is turning people back towards Democrats.
We'll have more from Carlos Guillermo Smith coming up, including the other big issues Florida voters could decide on in 2024. Stay with us.
This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Welcome back. Our guest this morning is Carlos Guillermo Smith, the first openly gay Hispanic person elected to the Florida legislature. The Democrat now running for State Senate District 17, hoping to replace Senator Linda Stewart, who can't run again due to term limits. We pick up the conversation on the debate over whether Florida is still a purple state after Republicans dominated in last year's midterms. When people say Florida is no doubt a red state now, it's no longer a purple state, it's no longer a coin flip. That's an anomaly?
The facts actually disprove that. Okay. When you see cities like Jacksonville and Duval County that flip, that are conservative cities that go Democrat in entire election cycles, I think that is very promising as far as what the future of Florida will represent. and the fact that Florida continues to be a purple state. But I'll tell you what gives me even more hope and inspiration for the future. It's young people. Gen Z. Young people really are turned off by the Republicans' extreme agenda of hatred and division. They want leaders in all levels of government, not only in Tallahassee, but in Washington at the local level, who actually care about reducing gun violence, who care about protecting the environment, who care about raising wages and addressing the affordability crisis in Florida, because we know more and more Floridians just can't afford Florida. And that gives me hope for the future, because young people are really just not having any of this hatred and division that's coming from Tallahassee.
Let me ask you this. Is it challenging to focus on those real issues when you do have to deflect and defend the culture wars that you're seeing as well? You know what I mean? Is it hard to do two jobs at once?
It is a real challenge, because this is what we have in Tallahassee. We have a 60-day legislative session that we're only in Tallahassee for 2 months to solve these real problems. So what we've seen happen is, unfortunately, that time has been squandered. The real issues that people want to see solved is they want to see problems related to housing affordability addressed by the Florida legislature. Florida is, and Orlando in particular, is one of the worst metro areas for affordable housing, for the number of units that are available. We have a majority of people who live in Orange County that are rent burdened, which means they pay more than 30% of their income on housing. And it's becoming less and less affordable for them to be able to either rent an apartment or be able to buy their first home and move into a home. It's not only funding that we need in Tallahassee to address affordable housing, we also need to take a different look at how we use TDT taxes. That's the tourist development tax. Right now there's a state law that says 40% of locally collected TDT tax dollars must be spent on tourism advertising. That is an outdated policy that no longer reflects the real needs of Orange County residents. They need those funds to do things like address affordable housing and build affordable housing, to strengthen our public transportation infrastructure and address real issues that we're having here. And so that's something that can be solved in Tallahassee as well, by reaching across the aisle, but also having an honest conversation about the problems that we have and what it's going to take to actually bring forward solutions.
What are you most proud of about your time in the state legislature and in the state house? When you look back at some of the things that you've accomplished, what sticks out to you that you want our viewers to be reminded of about that time?
You know, I think it is standing up for our most vulnerable. It's being a voice for the voiceless. In so many of these debates in Tallahassee, when we were debating bills like the Don't Say LGBTQ bill or other bills that attacked folks in the LGBTQ community, for example, it was really, really important for LGBTQ youth to be able to see people in Tallahassee who are like them, who are from their community, standing up and proudly fighting for our rights and for our freedoms and our dignity. That can go a long way as far as giving young people hope. But it's not just standing up for folks in the LGBTQ community. It's standing up for the fundamental rights of women to have bodily autonomy. During my time in Tallahassee, we were able to secure substantial funding to take people with disabilities off of waiting lists and enroll them into critical services that help them live and work in their communities. I want to continue that work, but we have a 22,000 person wait list of people with disabilities that needs to be funded, needs to be addressed, and that's going to be another priority for me.
There were some complaints, obviously, from 2022 about the lack of enthusiasm. You mentioned it. You talked about Democrats just didn't show up for the midterms in the state of Florida, and that was reflective of the outcome. But when you look at the national party all the way down to the state, and the lack of, especially at the state level, there's been just a change of leadership all the time, not on the same page. Do you think that's addressed now? And will it be addressed in time for 24?
Sure. Well, I'm actually really excited about the 2024 election cycle. There is so much that is giving voters energy and enthusiasm for the next cycle. It's not just the candidates that are being recruited, it's also the issues that are going to be on the ballot. Next November, if we collect the number of petitions that we need, and we're getting close to being able to do it, people will be able to protect abortion rights on the ballot, protect access to clean water. They'll be able to send transformational candidates back to the state house, like Representative Anna Eskamani, the first Gen Z candidate in Congress, the person to serve in Congress, Maxwell Frost from this area. I think this is really motivating a lot of folks and energizing a lot of folks, knowing that they'll be able to do all of these things on one ballot next November.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's what it's going to take, though? I mean, we've seen that with medical marijuana as well.
Absolutely.
Where it needs to go to a constitutional amendment.
That's right. And it's not just protecting abortion rights, which is an initiative currently underway that we hope to see and we expect to see on the ballot in November. It's also legalizing cannabis for responsible adult use, something that I've tried to do legislatively without a constitutional change for years. But the reality is we have a legislature that's not interested in doing things like legalizing cannabis, which would create, by the way, thousands of jobs and bring billions to our state economy. They were not willing to raise the minimum wage. The voters overrode them and did it anyway via constitutional amendment. There are so many things that Floridians care about, and they have found out more and more that the best way to get that done is not through the legislature, it is through a ballot initiative and a constitutional amendment.
So I meant to ask about this earlier before we go, but you, this position right now is being held by State Senator Linda Stewart, who's term limited. The significance of that and running for her position, who has been in politics for a long time in Central Florida, very well known, and is that something that sticks out to you as well?
Well, you know, I've worked with Senator Linda Stewart for many years, and I've known her for over a decade. You know, certainly big shoes to fill as far as the leadership role that she's taken in Tallahassee. But I'm ready to do it. You know, voters in this area know me, they trust me, they also know exactly what I stand for. And so my hope is that, you know, I would earn people's vote and their support in running for state senate, knowing that we're going to focus on the issues that matter: housing affordability, making sure we solve the teacher shortage in our public schools, expanding access to healthcare. But they also know me as someone who is going to be willing to stand up to defend their fundamental rights and freedoms. And folks really need a champion like that in Tallahassee right now.
And my thanks to Carlos Guillermo Smith for his time this week. You can find more information on elections, including some of the big changes coming for 2024 on clickorlando.com/results2024. I'm Justin Warmoth. Have a great Sunday.